The asphalt beneath my tires didn't sound like asphalt. It sounded like static, a low, rhythmic crunch hiss that vibrated through the steering column. I looked at the dashboard. My GPS was spinning in a frantic clockwise circle. The screen was a bright neon violet, displaying a single message: stay on the rendered path. I looked out the windshield at the city of Port Haven. It was beautiful, too beautiful. The skyscrapers were made of a glass so clear it looked like frozen water. But as I watched, a woman walking a dog on the sidewalk simply flickered. She stopped mid-stride. Her dog turned into a gray, untextured box. The woman's face stretched, her eyes sliding down to her chin as the pixels struggled to hold her shape. She looked at me and her voice didn't move, but her voice came through my car speakers. "Driver," she said, the audio clipping and popping. "The update is 99% complete. Please pull over. There is no more road in this version of the world." I looked ahead. The bridge into the city center was dissolving. It wasn't falling into the water. It was being erased, row by row, like someone was deleting a line of code. Behind me, the forest was gone. There was only a white, infinite void. I wasn't in Maine anymore. I was in the trash folder. We trust our maps more than we trust our eyes. If Google says there is a road, we drive. If Apple says there is a town, we believe it. We have offloaded our sense of reality to a grid of satellites maintained by corporations we've never met. I'm an urban explorer of the digital kind. I spend my nights glitch hunting, searching for anomalies in satellite imagery, looking for the places the Archon Group forgot to redact. On February 12, 2026, I found the Holy Grail. While scrolling through a remote sector of northern Maine, my fiber optic connection stuttered. The screen flickered a deep, bruised violet. The green forest canopy of the Maine wilderness was peeled back like a digital skin. In its place was a high-resolution urban sprawl, a city that spanned 30 square miles, complete with parks, hospitals, and a sprawling industrial district labeled Archon Logic Systems. I checked the historical data. Nothing. I checked the census records from 1950 to 2026. Nothing. According to the United States government, that land was a protected wilderness. But the satellite didn't lie. I could see cars in the driveways. I could see laundry hanging on lines. I could see the heat signatures of 10,000 living, breathing souls in a place that officially did not exist. Before we proceed, we must look at the metadata. The Archon Group doesn't just delete things, they move them. When I scraped the data during that 6-minute window, I found a protocol hidden in the CSS of the map layer. It was labeled defrag Municipal 04. In the digital world, when you move a file from one folder to another, there is a moment where the file exists in both places, or neither. Port Haven wasn't a city, it was a buffer zone, a temporary storage facility for people who had been removed from their original towns to make room for optimized assets. In every Street View image I downloaded, the people were looking at the camera, not with the usual blurred-out curiosity, but with total recognition. In a park on 4th Street, a group of children held up a sign that read, "Not rendered, help." They knew they were being watched. They knew they were files. The drive to Port Haven shouldn't have been possible. State Route 99 ends in a cul-de-sac 10 miles before the coordinates. But when I reached that dead end, the world began to stutter. The air temperature dropped 40 degrees instantly. My radio died, replaced by a 16-digit tone playing in a loop. 01189998 8199 9111. I saw thin, shimmering film across the road, like oil on water, and as my tires touched it, the forest behind me vanished. The city didn't emerge from the trees, it simply loaded. One moment I was in a forest, the next I was driving down Archon Boulevard. The transition was so seamless that it made my stomach churn. This was a city built of light and logic. The buildings were too straight, the colors were too vibrant. It felt like walking into a photograph that hadn't finished developing. I parked my car in front of a diner called The Sink. I stepped out, expecting the roar of the city, the exhaust, the sirens, the hum of life. There was no smell. The air was sterile, like a clean room in a microchip factory. I walked into the diner. There were 12 people inside. They were all sitting perfectly still, holding forks mid-air. They weren't statues. I could see the slight rise and fall of their chests. They were buffered. I walked up to a waitress. Her name tag said Elena. I touched her shoulder. She snapped to life with a violent shudder. Her eyes moved first, darting around the room before locking on mine. "Are you the update?" she whispered. "I'm a traveler," I said. "What is this place? Where are we?" "We're the buffer," she replied. "The Archon Group moved our town here 3 years ago. They said they were optimizing our original location. They promised us we'd be moved back once the reality was stable. But the server is full. We've been in the queue for 1,000 days. We're the people the world forgot to render." Elena led me to the Port Haven City Hall. As we walked, I noticed the buildings in the distance were low poly. They lacked detail. Their windows were just flat gray squares. The closer we got to the center of the city, the more detailed things became. We entered the basement of City Hall. There were no offices. There was only a massive pulsing column of violet light, a quantum processor the size of a skyscraper, humming at a frequency that vibrated my very marrow. This is the heart of the city. It renders our houses. It renders our food. It even renders our memories. But the power is failing. The archive is diverting resources to the new Oakhaven project. We're being deleted to make room for more optimized humans. I looked at the monitor on the pillar. It was a list of names. Subject 001, Elena Bond. Status, fragmented. Subject 772, Elias Thorne. Status, cached. Subject 991, Cassian Vane. Status, pending. We must understand what happens to a file when it is deleted. It doesn't disappear. It's simply marked in the system as available. The data remains until something else is written over it. Port Haven was the Archon Group's trash folder. These 10,412 people were deleted from the real world, but they were still taking up space in the system. The redaction I saw on Google Maps wasn't an accident. It was the archive performing a disk cleanup. This is when the alarm started. Not a siren, but a digital screech that felt like a needle being driven into my brain. The floor beneath us began to turn into a gray, untextured grid. The walls of City Hall dissolved into lines of code. "It's happening," she screamed. "The archive is performing a system restore." I ran for my car. The city was disappearing around me. I saw a skyscraper collapse, but it didn't fall. It just faded away, leaving a hole in the sky. I saw people running, but as they ran, their legs would disappear, leaving them floating in the air until their entire bodies blinked out of existence. The bridge into the city center was dissolving. Behind me, the forest was gone. There was only a white, infinite void. I reached my car just as the road began to turn into a white void. I slammed it into reverse and drove toward the shimmer that I had entered. I made it through the film just as the bridge behind me vanished. I crashed into a tree in the main forest, the real forest. I sat there for an hour, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked at my phone. I opened Google Maps. The coordinates showed nothing but green trees. The city was gone. Elena was gone. But I looked at my passenger seat. There was a coffee cup from the sink. It felt real. It smelled like coffee. But as I watched, the cup began to lose its resolution. The edges became jagged. The color faded to gray. Within 10 seconds, it was a pile of digital dust on my floor mat. I realized then that I hadn't escaped. I had just been saved to a different folder. I looked at my own hand. In the center of my palm, a 16-digit code was pulsing in a soft, violet light. User Auditor. File saved to new reality. The Archon Group doesn't just erase cities, they erase the memory of cities. They replace the chaotic, messy truth of humanity with a perfect, rendered lie. If you've ever looked at a map and felt like a town shouldn't be there, or if you've ever driven through a place that felt like a movie set, you're not crazy. You're just seeing the loading icons.
The city isn't empty. It's just waiting for the next update. And now I'm the one who has to map it.